Happy Tuesday, everyone. Today's story is Thumbelina. There once was a woman who wished to have a child. She went to a fairy and said, "I would like to have a child so much. Can you help me?" "Oh, that is easy," said the fairy. "Here is some special barley. Put it into a flower pot and see what happens." The woman went home and planted the barley. Immediately a handsome flower grew. Its petals tightly closed like a bud as the woman watched in astonishment. The flower opened to reveal a graceful little maiden. She was barely half as long as a thumb, so the woman named her Thumbelina. Her bed was a walnut shell with a violet petal mattress and a rose petal quilt. One night a large ugly toad crept through the window and saw Thumbelina sleeping in her walnut shell. "What a pretty little wife for my son," said the toad, and she took the shell to the stream where she lived with her son. "We will put her on a water lily leaf in the middle of the stream so she won't escape," said the toad to her son. When Thumbelina woke the next morning, she began to cry, for she did not know where she was or how to get home. The old toad swam out to the leaf with her ugly son and said, "Here is my son. He will be your husband." Then they left Thumbelina alone on the water lily leaf, where she sat and wept. She could not bear to think of a life with the ugly toad. The fish in the stream felt sorry that Thumbelina should have to live with the ugly toads, so they surrounded the stalk of the leaf and gone through it. The water lily leaf floated down the stream, carrying Thumbelina to faraway lands. Thumbelina was glad, for the toad could not reach her now. She lived by the river, and the birds sweetly sang to her. Summer and autumn passed, and then came the long, cold winter. The birds who had sung to her flew away, and the trees and the flowers withered. She was dreadfully cold, for her clothes were torn. It began to snow, and she shivered with cold and hunger. One day, while searching for food, Thumbelina came to the cottage of a field mouse. She knocked on the door. "You poor little creature," said the field mouse when she saw the starving girl. "Come in and share my dinner." She quickly came to like Thumbelina and said, "You can stay with me all winter if you keep my rooms clean." Thumbelina agreed and was very happy. "My neighbour is a very rich mole," said the field mouse. "If you had him for a husband, you would be well provided for." The mole was indeed rich, but he was also quite disagreeable and did not like the sun. The field mouse insisted Thumbelina sing to him, and the mole fell in love with her sweet voice. He dug a passage from the field mouse's house to his burrow and encouraged them to visit whenever they liked. One evening the mole and Thumbelina were walking together when they came upon a swallow that had died of cold. The mole said, "How miserable it must be to be a bird. They do nothing but sing in the summer and die of hunger in the winter." Thumbelina said nothing. "Perhaps this bird sang to me sweetly in the summer," she thought. That night Thumbelina could not sleep, so she got out of bed and wove a carpet of hay. She carried it to the bird and spread it over him so that he might lie warmly in the cold earth. "Farewell, pretty bird," she said. Thumbelina laid her head on the bird's breast and was surprised when his heart went thump, thump. He was not dead, only numb from the cold, and the warm carpet had restored him to life. The next morning Thumbelina stole out to see him. He was very weak and could barely open an eye to look at her. "Stay in your warm bed and I will take care of you," she said. With much care and love, Thumbelina nursed him in the secret of the cold whole winter. When spring came, the swallow bid farewell to Thumbelina. He asked if she would go with him, but Thumbelina knew if it would make the field house, it would make him feel very sad if she left her, and said, "No, I cannot." "Farewell then, little maiden," said the swallow, and flew out into the sunshine. Soon afterwards the field mouse took Thumbelina aside and said, "You're going to be married to the mole as soon as summer is over." Thumbelina wept at the thought of it. Every morning and evening she crept out to the sea and the blue sky. She wished to see her dear swallow again, but he had flown far away. The day approached when the mole was to take Thumbelina away to live with him. She went to say goodbye to the sun. "Farewell, bright sun," she cried, curling her arm around a red flower. "Greet the swallow for me if you should see him again." Suddenly she heard a loud "tweet, tweet" from above. She looked up and saw the swallow. "Winter is coming," he said. "Now will you fly with me to warmer lands?" "Oh, I will," said Thumbelina, and she climbed onto the bird's back. The swallow flew over forests and high above mountains, leaving the mole and the field mouse far behind. At last they came to a blue lake. Beside it, surrounded by flowers, stood a palace of white marble. The swallow laid Thumbelina gently in a beautiful blossom. "I live in a nest beneath this castle's tallest turret, but you shall live here," said the swallow with a knowing smile. On the flowers stood a man as tiny as Thumbelina, wearing a gold crown and delicate wings. A tiny man or woman lived in every flower, and he was the king of them all. The little king thought she was the prettiest maiden he had ever seen. He asked her to marry him and to be the queen of all the flowers. Thumbelina happily agreed. For the wedding she was given a lovely pair of wings, which were fastened to her shoulders so she could fly from flower to flower as the little swallow sang a wedding song. "Farewell, farewell," said the swallow when it was time to return to the forest for summer. He had a nest over the window of a house where a writer of fairy tales lived. The swallow sang "tweet, tweet," and from this song came this story. The